Welcome to this week's episode of Nikon's Birding Adventures. Join us as we discover the Palm Beaches where the tropics come alive. On this week's episode, we're going to take you to some of the birding hotspots around the county, and we're going to go in quest of our golden bird, the snail kite. Let's go birding.
Florida is a birding mecca, from the colorful and distinctive natural populations of wading birds to the specialties like Florida scrub jays and red-cockaded woodpeckers, combined with the winter migration of flocks from up north. Palm Beach County is truly a birdwatcher's paradise.
Palm Beach County is a year-round birding destination, but it's especially good during migration time. And here we are in April, and we've just had a report of a mega rarity, a first report for the entire state of Florida, a Pacific golden plover. And this has been found out west in the sod farms, so we're going to head out to western Palm Beach County to try and locate this bird. And then, if we find it, I want to take you to a very special little preserve very close to my house in Lantana.
Well, this is really exciting. We've got this Pacific golden plover, but it's really far away. And we've had to just get permission, because this is private land, to go in and film him. So we're going to head in right now, along this road, along the sod farm, and hopefully we'll get this first record for Florida, for the entire state, Pacific golden plover. Let's go. We don't have much light at all. So amazing, this is the first record for the state. We're in Palm Beach County, Florida, Pacific golden plover. And this bird is so way out of range, it's pretty scary. These birds breed on the tundra in Alaska, and they migrate to places like Hawaii. And it's even quite a rare bird on the west coast of the United States. But to have it in Florida is just way, way out of its range. And here we're looking at the first record for the entire state. This is pretty spectacular. And I tell you something, there are birders from all over the country, and certainly all over Florida, that are coming to look at this bird right now. This is a mega, mega rarity for Florida, the Pacific golden plover. Awesome!
This Birding Adventures episode is powered by Nikon, the world leader in optics since 1917. And by Palm Beach County, Florida. Discover the Palm Beaches. And sponsored in part by Manfrotto, complete solutions for photographers and videographers. Visit manfrotto.us. So late yesterday afternoon, after looking at the Pacific golden plover, we came here to Lantana Nature Preserve, and in the fading light, we got to see an awesome Swansons Warbler. We're back here this morning to see if we can get some more footage. So this is the site where we had the Swansons Warbler yesterday afternoon, under this really nice fruiting ficus at the back of the reserve. And to find Swansons Warbler, it's often best
to do it by ear rather than by your eyes. So we're going to sit here very quietly and listen for the bird tossing leaves in the understory, because that's exactly what they do. We've got the Swansons Warbler just foraging in the leaf litter at the bottom here. Right now he's just sitting dead still. James is getting some nice images. I'm getting some video here, and he's just sitting right on the ground resting. This is unbelievable because this is probably the most seldom viewed breeding bird in North America. I mean, it is incredibly difficult to get good views, very, very tough to get good photographs, and even harder to get good video. Wow, check at him. He's just sitting there. He's just hopped around the back.
Swansons warblers are one of the few ground foraging warbler species. They have a very distinctive habit of walking fairly quickly along the ground and then flicking leaves from side to side to capture insects and spiders. On their breeding grounds in the southeastern United States, they tend to be almost impossible to observe, except for their loud call. They're not resident in Florida, but they do stop over during migration to Central America and the Caribbean islands. It is here, when they stop over for a few days, that they can be best observed. The bird that we found at Lantana Nature Preserve was amazingly tame, walking right up to us within a distance of 6 feet or so.
So that was incredible. Swansons Warbler, we've tried to relocate it, but it's disappeared just as quickly as we found it. And that's typical of this warbler species. It's very skulking, very, very tough to find, but the hardest warbler in North America to see well. Wasn't that incredible? Lifer for him?
Super cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Well done. Awesome. Swansons Warbler, Lantana Nature Preserve, one of the few places in South Florida where this warbler occurs on a semi-regular basis. Awesome stuff. Swansons Warbler.
You can go.
So we're at Town and Country Feed Supply. We're going turkey hunting, but before we do that, I'm going to hook up with an old buddy of mine, Rob Arrington from Respect Outdoors.
This is what I can tell you about a turkey. His eyes are impeccable. He can see things that you would never imagine him seeing. He knows what's out of place. He knows what was there, and if something new is there, he will know about that as well. Movement, he's keen on movement. Turkeys don't like anything tall, so if there's tall grass, you need to stay away from that. I think if you were just to pull back some leaves and sort of get laid down, you need to lay where you're real comfortable, and you need to lay where you can see out the corner of your eye.
I've always wanted to get close to the Osceola subspecies of wild turkey, so our crew headed out to Billy Bowman's ranch in northwestern Palm Beach County. The idea was to use cloak concealment wear and see if I could get a turkey to come in close.
We've heard from turkey and hunting expert Rob Arrington, but now we're going to hear from Rob Snyder, who's been hunting this particular area for years and years. He knows turkeys like no other hunter in this particular area, especially Osceola turkey.
They're very predictable animals, and within Florida you're allowed to use feeders, so you get the feeders, and they're going to come to those feeders all the time.
I jokingly asked a few of the guys on the ranch what would happen if I tried to catch one by hand.
My response to that would be, where's the closest medical facility?
So what we're doing here is we're digging ourselves a human trap pit, and I'm going to lie down in here with my cloak, leafy suit, and wait for these turkeys to come in. Might be a couple of hours.
Well, folks, we came close. Had a couple of turkeys come in there. One real nice male. Man.
This Birding from the Edge segment is brought to you by Nikon, manufacturers of the Edge line of optics.
Slingshot golf on the buggy.
We've got in trouble a couple of times.
Here comes the Callaway. That is a first.
This is Birding from the Edge. This Birding Adventures episode is powered by Nikon, the world leader in optics since 1917. And by Palm Beach County, Florida. Discover the Palm Beaches. One of the best places in the Palm Beaches to see the most beautiful bird in North America, the painted bunting, is Okehele Nature Center. Let's go see if there's some around this morning. The French word for painted bunting is non pareil, which means without equal, and it's not hard to see how this bird gets its name. This is without doubt the most beautiful bird in all of North America. Tragically, from 1966 until 1995, the population plummeted by over 60%. And today, the painted bunting is classified as near threatened by the IUCN. We need to do everything that we can to protect painted buntings from the caged bird trade for future generations. With this show, I've had the privilege of birding all over the world. There's nothing better than actually coming home to Palm Beach County and birding right at my feeders in my backyard. But this morning I found a very special bird at my feeder, a clay-colored sparrow. Clay-colored sparrows are birds of the northern prairies of Canada and the extreme northern United States. It is here on the Great Plains and vast scrublands that they breed every summer, and then they migrate southwards straight down to Mexico. Occasionally a bird will get lost and end up in Florida, and that's exactly what has happened to this individual, which has showed up in my yard in West Palm Beach of all places. Although they're not brightly colored, their crisp plumage patterning and small size distinguish them from many other sparrows. This is especially useful when they feed in mixed flocks of other sparrows on their wintering grounds. In this case, in my yard, this particular bird has taken up residence with my flock of house sparrows. Although they are still numerous in their range, clay-colored sparrow numbers have declined over the last 40 years, and it's awesome that one has decided to overwinter right here in the Palm Beaches. Twice a year, I have spot-breasted orioles nesting right in my backyard in this tree, and right now we've got two fledglings that have just come out of the nest, and they're sitting in the tree here waiting to be fed by the adults. Baby spot-breasted orioles look very different to the adults. These fledglings are a bright yellow color, and as they get older they will gradually assume the bright dark orange coloration of their parents. These birds are originally from Mexico and northern Central America, but they were introduced to the Miami area in the late 1940s and have since spread to several southern counties in the state. Although they are a breeding bird and thus recognized as a countable species by the American Birding Association, they are nowhere common, and visiting birders can have a real tough time trying to locate them. But the suburbs of West Palm Beach, close to the Intercoastal Waterway and the border of Lake Worth, is arguably the best location in North America to reliably get this brightly colored bird. This Birding Adventures episode is powered by Nikon, the world leader in optics since 1917. And by pelagic polarized sunglasses. And by Palm Beach County, Florida. Discover the Palm Beaches. And by Hobie Mirage Drive Kayaks. Enjoy nature effortlessly.
The gateway to the Everglades in Palm Beach County is Arthur R. Marshall Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge. And it's here that you can go out and experience the wonderful birding of the Everglades. Right now we're going to go in search of our golden bird for this episode, the snail kite. One of the largest watersheds in North America is the Everglades, often called the River of Grass. And this is basically a huge expanse of water that flows right from the middle of the state all the way down to the Keys. Palm Beach County is really fortunate to have a pristine swath of the Everglades in the western part of the county. This is a fantastic area to go in quest of some very unusual birds for Florida. Birds like the swallow-tailed kite, the snail kite, limpkins, and other great birds. So I like to use the dikes as a method to cover a lot of ground. We've got these big swaths of the Everglades here, but then occasionally you'll find like an exposed snag or an exposed tree, and it's here that these snail kites use these snags as a vantage point from which to hunt. We've actually got two snail kites perched up in Loxahatchee, and they're doing exactly what we were talking about. One's got its wings out, it's sitting there just sunning itself in the early morning sun, and the other one is hunting from the vantage point, looking down for these apple snails. Florida snail kites are very endangered. Elsewhere in Latin America, if you go down to South America, Central America, you'll find snail kites in very large numbers. I know I was in Colombia once and we'd see, 3 or 4 snail kites in a tree. But here in Florida, their numbers fluctuate every single year. And there have been times when there have been no more than 60 snail kites in the whole of Florida. It's listed as a federally endangered and state endangered bird, and it's therefore very vital that we preserve the populations of Florida snail kites for generations to come. And the only way that we can really achieve this is by preserving the habitat and the food source, making sure that the Everglades is protected for years to come. Well, this is what draws snail kites to this area, are these Florida apple snails, and this is exactly what they feed upon here in the Everglades. They'll use that bill to kind of shuck the snail and get all the meat out of the snail. They'll often hold it in its talons, and then they'll use that weird shaped bill to shuck the meat out, and then they'll feed on the apple snails. And so the presence of this large water snail really dictates the presence of snail kites. And because of fluctuating water levels in Florida, at certain times of the year, you'll see snail kites, you'll come back to exactly the same place a couple of months later, and they've totally disappeared. And it's all due to this fat little snail, the Florida apple snail.
The snail kite only eats the apple snail, and the apple snail lives in the marsh. Well, the marshes are about 3 feet deep. When we're fluctuating the water too much for those marsh plants, we destroy their ability to grow, and the snails need the plants and the kites need the snails, and it just messes up everything. So the biggest thing is it's going to take us several $1 billion. It's going to take us a couple decades, even if we work consistently at it. And what we hope is that these 700 kites that are still here can last until we get these water levels under reasonable control that can help the kites.
It's quite amazing watching these snail kites. We've got this one here just sitting, holding that apple snail, shucking it out and feeding on the flesh. And they'll probably, I've seen them eat 20 snails in a day. They'll actually just dive down and they wait for the snails to come up to breathe. And then as the snails come up, they'll swoop down, they'll often hover over the water, they'll see it, and they'll swoop down, grab it with their talons, and then take it to a perch, and then they'll start shucking the snail and feeding on it. It's absolutely amazing to watch this behavior. And then
you know, often in the same area, then you've got a limpkin right there doing exactly the same thing, but perched normally on the ground and doing the same thing with the apple snails. You know, a sure presence of limpkins or snail kites in an area is when the ground is littered with apple snails. And often you'll walk in the Everglades and you'll just see these apple snail shells everywhere, just littered around. And that's a sure presence of one or both of these spectacular birds. So we've got these two birds behind us here, and they're doing this weird kind of display. It looks like it's almost a mating display, and this is a very good sign because snail kites do nest in Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge. In fact, they nest right in the areas where some of the tourists come in and the guests come in to go and view these birds. Right in the impoundments, there's some great trees, and the snail kites nest in these trees and then go out to forage in the Everglades itself. That's our golden bird for this episode, the Florida snail kite.
It's sitting on a station floor, heading back to a place you've never been before. And it's hard to be happy and you know it's